with you shortly. I'm just figuring out a couple of technical issues here, and we'll be right back. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Hello, 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 and welcome to the ninth and final episode of this series. So we have been doing this set of episodes, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of figuring out a couple of things here before we start. I should have them figure out very shortly here. And so yeah, we've been doing this episode for a while now, and I'm sorry, this series for a while now. And initially it was only going to be 8, but we spent one of the episodes talking about ZBrush 2019. So in lieu of that, we went an extra episode, and this is that episode. So this is going to be episode 9. And once we're done with this, I will take a bit of a break over the summer, do some traveling and some other business, and then we should be coming back with a new model and a new series, probably sometime early July, maybe mid-July at the latest. Okay, so here is the model we've been working on, and since last time I've made some changes. So let me kind of turn down the music here. I've made some changes and added some things and have had an opportunity to work on it a little bit. So I think the last time we were looking at our model, we had it in having a different head. So one of the nice things about the new version of ZBrush and the fact that it has these folders is that I can have 2 different options for a head, and like this is the new one that I made, which I kind of like a little bit more. It's a little sleeker. It kind of goes with the design aesthetic more. So and this was the initial one. So we had this one first, and then we basically went. So this is one option for the head, which is what we've been working on so far. And kind of looking at the model itself, I figured out that we could also have another model for the head, which would be this one right here. So all of the parts for this head are in this folder, and all of the parts for this head are in this folder, right? So that way I can just turn the folder on and off for a different iteration of the model. So we're not going to continue with this head today. I think this is just going to be another option, and maybe I will take that further at another time. But at this point, I kind of like this newer, sleeker looking head more than what we had before. Arnold, okay, so I'll answer some questions here. Ictus Studios, hello. And Arnold, welcome from Poland. And Arnold is asking where can I find the previous episodes? All good questions. Let me answer the one about where the previous episodes are. So if you go to ZBrushLive.com, and I'm doing it right now so I can show you. So here's ZBrush Live, right? And this is us kind of doing our thing. But if you go to presenters and you scroll down to my name right here, you can see that there's a little bit of information about me, but here's all the episodes. And these are on Twitch. So episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this one. And so that's one place to find it. Another place to find it is if you go to YouTube. And I think pixelogic.com, youtube.com/pixelogic. I think I should have put a slash there. Do that one more time. All right, I guess just look for Pixelogic in YouTube. Maybe that's not the URL, right? So this is the Pixelogic channel, and so here, if you go to the Pixelogic channel, you will notice that, so this is me live right now, but if you go to videos, this has chronological videos of all the different streams. So it also has the Ask ZBrush, which is really super useful. If you haven't used Ask ZBrush, it's a good way to ask questions about ZBrush. But here is the new episode, and if you keep going down, you will see all the different episodes that are there. Again, you can see a lot of different artists posting different styles. So this was episode 7 right here, and if you scroll further down, there's episode 6. So this way, if you want to look through some of the other streamers, this is the way to do it. Or if you just go to ZBrush Live, you can just find my name under presenters, and then all the episodes are listed under here. Okay. And I'm sure they're available on Twitch too if you do a search on Twitch, and they're also available on Facebook. So a lot of different ways that you can watch these videos. Okay, so Arnold, hopefully that answers your question. If you have any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and get started. So just kind of a quick journey backwards as to what we've done here is I'll go ahead and see if I still have the older models here. I think I did a little bit of house cleaning, but I should have some of the older ones still loaded up. Maybe I got rid of them. No, they're here. So when we first started out, we started out with a Z-sphere rig, and then we, maybe this is not the run. Where is it? I don't think it's this one. I think this might be the one. So we started out with a Z-sphere rig, and then we kind of figured out different poses for our character and started developing it. So here we have all these different poses that we worked on to kind of figure out different poses that would work with the character. And I think I should have another one here. Maybe, oh no, I don't have it. That's right. I actually put them all in the same when I did the house cleaning, I put them all in the same place. So they're all here and under folders. So that's another good reason to have folders. So here I've got all these different parts. So I've got all the parts I kind of have worked on in the past. I put them in a folder. So these might not be active right now, but they're parts that I've been working on in the past. So I just have them in a folder here, and I can just pull pieces from them if I need to. These are Boolean folders over here. I think these are the Z-sphere models for hands and feet and other stuff. So we basically just started out with a Z-sphere rig or Z-sphere model, and then developed it slowly, and took a bunch of different turns and different options. And I think this is kind of what I was looking for. So luckily I just found it. So we started out with this basically, which is just a simple Z-sphere, and then we replaced all the bones that go between the spheres, so to speak, with these just basically a simple cube. And then once we did that, we made the Z-sphere model, developed it to this, added some more links, and then worked on the gesture. And then we generated a adaptive skin, which is right here. And then from the adaptive skin, we kind of started working on the gesture some more. So over time, we zero meshed it and dynameshed it, and just went through all sorts of iterations and got all these parts. We did some painting, or I'm sorry, Z-sketching to create some muscle information, and I think we got this from the Z-sketch. And then it developed into the first iteration of the model was this, which was pretty good, but we ended up rendering this with an NPR, non-photorealistic renderer, when ZBrush 2019 came out, and then we basically did all these links as to how this will be articulated. So all of these steps you can find in the different 9 or 8 videos that we've had so far, and today we are at this stage, which is pretty close to final, right? So we're pretty close to finishing it. So today, hopefully I'll finish it. Another thing I should mention, that today we might go a little bit over 2 hours because I want to spend the time, and luckily I do have the time to do it. So we will just continue to work on this until we get to a point where we can have a nice render of it. All right, so I see some people are talking. Okay, so somebody just has the letter F, which I don't know what that means. And okay, so Blind Fox is saying, Greg, to catch a stream. I haven't found an answer for quite some. Do you have a chance now to VDM brush in stroke mode? So I'm doing it a while back. You know, it's kind of funny that you say that. Well, I actually have spent very little time on vector displacement brushes. I apologize. However, you know, you can always ask ZBrush. So just use the hashtag AskZBrush, and I'm sure one of the Pixelogic folks can answer that question for you. But I don't know if vector displacement brushes would work in stroke mode. I don't see why not, but I think they're more for just kind of creating different shapes on top of your model. But yeah, I can look into it. I don't know if I'll have time today. Blind Fox, if you just shoot me an email, I can kind of figure it out, or you can also use Ask ZBrush. Okay, so here's our model, and you can see here that I've made a few changes to it. One of them is I've actually done a little bit of work to try and figure out how these arms would work. And I actually used a kit bash kit last time. So let me turn transparency on, and you can kind of see in here that I've put this mechanism inside, which would be how these arms would move and gyrate. And so again, remember that our goal for this model was for it to be a robot that's kind of a general purpose robot initially, and what it can do is walk on 2 legs, and also it can bend down and run on 4 legs if it needs to run really fast to get from one place to another. Just a second. So I figured out the mechanism here for how the arms would work, and then so this would be inside of the robot, and then I basically figured out a way to actually have a casing around it, because we don't want those mechanical parts exposed. And then so this would be kind of some sort of a rubberized or a very kind of malleable yet hard material that would hold that in place, and then there would be bands that would go around it. And I think the color of this is a little bit darker, so I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically this object that's holding it together. And maybe when I turn transparency off, you can see it better. So it's these stripes over here. So I figured out that that would be the mechanism underneath that would basically would move these arms, and then it would be exposed. And it's kind of nice to have this thing inside of it because I can render some maybe transparent renderings, and they would show inside and would create some visual interest. Okay, and then the next thing I did is as I mentioned earlier, I just made a new head, and that's basically just a simple. I started with a simple sphere and sculpted it out. So this is what it looks like. Just sculpted it out using just basic brushes. And I think I've done this process for some of the other parts, so it's not that big of a mystery. And then once I got done with that, I extracted out this part right here and zero meshed it, so that would be the mask. So this is the entire head. The new one, which I kind of like a little bit more and can do a little bit more work on it today. The arms are pretty much done for the most part. I added a few details. We'll add a few more today. The stomach part is pretty much done as well. I don't know what this part is that's coming out of it, so I need to figure this out. I don't know if it's a part that we do want to have in there or not. Let me just turn it off for a second. Is that a part that we need? No, that was an extra part that got turned on by mistake. So this is kind of what it looks like over here. And again, as I mentioned, this part over here is also made of some sort of rubbery cloth, and it covers up what's underneath it, which is basically these pistons that move the head back and forth and around. And again, I can make this transparent if I want to, so those parts could show up. And then, oh, well, I guess we did need that part that we just hid because it's the knees. But I don't know why it's coming out over here, so I'll have to put that back in. No worries. Easy enough to do. Just need to make sure I'm on that part. And maybe push these guys inwards because they're really not. Yeah, I wonder what happened there. Doesn't look like they've moved. Let me see. I think maybe this part was hidden over here and it just got displayed, or yeah, because we don't really need this part. Okay, I can just get rid of it. Like so. Right, so it doesn't show underneath because we want the other parts to show over here. So, and I think it's good over here. Okay. So that's this part over here that's inside, and none of it is, not most of this is going to show, but the knees are part of it, and I could cut out these parts that I don't need later on, but for now, I think this is what it is. Also the elbows over here. But there are some parts that are poking out, and they're easy enough to kind of push in underneath these parts. Okay. All right, Arnold is saying that I'm not loud enough. I should ask that. How am I coming across? Am I loud? Am I not loud? Should I speak louder? I think I can. My microphone is set on the highest volume here. How's everybody hearing me? I just wanted to ask. And folks on Facebook, can you hear me okay? Excuse me. All right, I'll just wait a few minutes. I think there's a little bit of a delay. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and continue working on this and adding some more parts and kind of making the other parts come together more. Maybe I should move my mic closer too. Maybe that'll help. Okay. All right, so let's just kind of hide these parts over here. All right, so okay, cool. Let me see if there's anything else I can do here to make this microphone any louder. If you folks just can hang on for 1 second. Microphone properties. Yep. Okay, and then let's see if I can do something for it here. It looks like this is the loudest that it can go, unless I can, let's see, let's try this. All right, So is this any better? Okay, good. It sounds good. And yeah, so I think this is kind of the loudest it can go. So we'll just have to kind of monitor it. If anybody has any wants me to go louder, I can. Okay, so one of the other things also that I did to kind of highlight some of the design choices I made, as soon as this saving gets done, we can talk about it, is that I kind of chose to have hands for the feet because I figured that this would be a very kind of dexterous model. And it could, again, run on all fours, or it can jump up and kind of like a monkey, just hold itself and kind of swing from different areas. And then I started to actually figure out a pose for it, like a pose like this, and then went on to pose the model in that pose by using a T-pose mesh. So here's kind of what I came up with as a pose. And so I figured that this is maybe a military version of this robot. So this would be some sort of an ammo drum. A drum it would have on behind it, and then I'm going to actually, if I have time today, model a rifle for him to hold, and then there'd be like bullets coming from the ammo drum to here. So he would just hold it up with one leg like this, and then he'd use this leg, or she, I guess he or she would use this leg to kind of hold itself up, and then it would have the rifle. So I kind of started playing around with posing it last time a little bit to get this. And so as soon as I get done modeling, we'll just kind of continue working on this pose and maybe adding a rifle to it. So let's get back and let's get cooking. All right, so I'm going to do this top down and check boxes off as I'm done. So these ear pods kind of look good. I need to work on the head a little bit more. It's pretty fleshed out, but I might be able to add a few details here on it. So let's do that. And again, if you folks have, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, one of the folks here said that they turned on their speakers, so that's good. And I just want to do one more thing here to set this to just regular render settings because I did some NPR renders with it earlier. All right. So now we're just going to work some more on the helmet, and it's mostly the general shape of it is done. All I need to do is just maybe tighten it up a little bit more. And again, this is just a Dynamesh model, and I'm using Sculptress mode, and I'm also using the just the clay tubes brush here to go ahead and let me open this up like so. I'm just using clay tubes to go in here and maybe bring out some shapes to give this a little bit more character, and then just maybe solo this out. All right, let me just make sure I'm yeah, I don't know why this is let's do this. I'm in Sculptress mode, dynamic. Okay. And X, Y, and Z. All right. So this part's going to be covered. I don't really need to worry about this, but maybe over here I need to put in a few more details, like so. And I'm just going to turn everything else on, and then just basically use maybe. Let me do this too. Config. There we go. All right, and then I'm just going to use the H polish to get these to be more planar. And then I can put in some details in here. So one of the choices I have is to actually put in the details into the sculpt itself. Or another thing I could do also is maybe use the handy dandy lightbox capability. So I can go ahead and maybe load in one of those spotlight, I mean, not sorry, not lightbox, but load in maybe one of these shapes over here. And let me turn this on and move it over here. So these are some of the alphas that are shipped with ZBrush 2019, and some of them, 4 of these are provided by me. So I think I'm going to use one of these guys here. And what I'm going to do here is just duplicate this one so I have a copy of it. And then I'm just going to take this one and clear it out. Am I using the right one? I'm just basically erasing it because I just want one of these. I don't want all of them. Of course, you can use the circle to get this as well, but I'm actually just gonna do this for now because that's what I started to do. And here I'm just going to place one of these here. So let me just make sure it's well centered. So this is centered, and now this is centered on it. And I just want to make this a little bit bigger, like so, and just put it here and do one of these guys. Okay, so now I don't really need this alpha. I can put it back, and I just basically created this shape. And with this shape, what I want to do is I want to extrude it. So I'm just going to pick a kind of a shorter piece, maybe this one, and then just do the snapshot 3D. And that should have created nope, not yet. All right, let's do this one more time. Okay, so this is the one we want, and do the snapshot 3D. There it is, and then let's hide the spotlight. I actually, this one was selected, so it created one of these, and we don't really want this one. Oh, it's a separate subtool. I can just delete it. Okay, and then I'll just delete this one, and this is the piece we want right here. And what I'm going to do is make this smaller, like so. And this is a feature I'm going to be using all over my model. And these could be lights, these could be different items. And you can see here I've got kind of somewhat similar versions of them already in the arm. So what I'm doing here is just making a kind of a different one of them. And now I can just duplicate these. So I'm just using Control and drag and place them in different parts of the face. So here, let's say I've got one of these. That's going to go into, and maybe make this a bit smaller, over into this part of the face, like so. Make sure the color is right. Okay, and then this maybe will go over here, like this. And of course, I can also make a brush with this as well. Maybe that's what I'll do in a bit. And I can just use it as a brush to kind of populate the model. All right, so that's kind of good. Yeah, I think I'm going to go the brush method. That'll be a lot faster. All right, so let's just undo this, come back to here, and do this with it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just make an IMM brush just with that piece. So here it is, and I don't know why this is not centering correctly. Maybe I'll just redraw my model in a little bit. But okay, so let's look at it now. Did I make it too much smaller? No, it's good. Okay, so there it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose this piece right here. And I'm going to make a brush with it. So it's just as simple as just going in here and saying create, insert mesh, new, and now this is a brush. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it is available for me, and then I just can hide this part. And now just go back to my helmet piece, zoom in on it, and now since I've got symmetry on, I can just add these pieces in. Let me see something here. Yeah, I seem to have activated some sort of a mode where it's the model underneath is disappearing, but there it is, and then I just push it in. So one of the things I'd like to do with these is keep them all the same size. So to keep them the same size, I just want to make sure that my brush size is, I'm sorry, my draw size is very specific. So as I'm drawing them, I want to hold control down and just get this size. So the size is 4, and I got to remember that that's what it is. And from now on, when I put these in, they're all going to be size 4. Okay, this is going to drive me crazy if I don't figure out why it's not zooming in on the actual part itself and zooming into another part. Okay, I think, oh, I know why, because of the, maybe I'm choosing the folder. Okay, all right, so now I've added 2 of these parts here, and maybe I want to add another 2 somewhere else. Maybe add another 2 over here, like so. Again, I just want them to be the same size, and then just kind of position them correctly and push them in. And if I don't want to push them in, I can always go here and increase the depth so that when I draw them out, they come out where I need them to be. Okay, here's another one. And I think that's good. I don't want to add too many. Maybe one more, and maybe they'll kind of be over here, like so. And then let's make sure they are embedded in to the helmet. Okay, so now that I've got these features in there, I can go ahead and do a split to similar parts. And all the lights are one piece, and then I can assign a material to them, like let's say in Keyshot or whatever later, and maybe they could be lights. And then here's the rest. All right, so let's bring everything back. And I'm liking where these are, so that's done. And then let's go ahead and keep sculpting on the helmet here. I think the intensity is way too much. Maybe decrease it. All right, so let me take a minute here. There's a bunch of people. Okay, so people like the sound. Okay, sorry, Arnold. You might want to maybe increase the volume of your computer. I think some other folks did that too. So maybe it's just the volume of your computer needs to be a little bit higher. Okay, and just do this. Okay, and let me get the edge polish brush. Okay, I don't have perspective on, that's right. Okay. And another thing I'd like to use is using trim hole, and that's always good to kind of add little screw holes and things like that. So here, if I want to maybe add a kind of a bolt hole over here, that's a good way to do it. I think that's a very typical place for it. Maybe I'll put one over here. It's better. There we go. And then maybe some under the chin over here. So I'm going to solo the helmet again. All right, that kind of created an interesting feature, kind of as a happy accident. So I'm just going to leave it there, and let's bring this back. And maybe here I'm just going to have one of these kind of coming out this way. Then use damp standard and maybe give it a little bit of indentation over here, like so. Then edge polish, flatten this top out. All right, I think I don't want to add too many details to the head because I think the general shape is working, and I think I have enough here where I can leave it be. I don't like the U shape here, so I'm going to fix that a little bit, like so. Okay, cool. So I think I'm pretty much happy with this portion of the head. Let's move on to the mask here. So the mask basically is just an extraction, and what I want to do with this is maybe add a little bit of depth to it. So to do that, I'm just going to use the Z-modeler brush and just Q-mesh this inwards like so. Maybe all polygons. And here we are. Okay, so then I just basically do this. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to make sure that these edges over here are creased. So let me just go to subtool mode here, and what I'm going to do is crease the poly loop. So I'm just going to crease this entire poly loop. Oh man. Let's see if there's a way it does it so it doesn't do the inner pieces as well. Okay, all sides, long sides. Let's just do all the long sides. That's exactly what I want. So now if I press D, I will get this shape, which is good, but I also want to crease some other specific parts here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And actually what I'm also going to do is Q-mesh this part out just a tiny little bit so I have a lip that goes around the helmet. So here, Q-mesh poly loop, and do this to it. That is exactly what I wanted. And then one other thing I want to do is like crease some edges. So I'm just going to crease specific edges, and then also let's turn this off. Okay. And I'm going to go off of dynamic subdivision and just pick the edges that I want. So this edge, this one, and these are edges that I just want to have them be really sharp. So now I'm going to D. And as you can see, I can have a really good hard surface workflow in ZBrush and get some really compelling looking shapes. All right. So since this is going to be the last stream for a while, if you folks want to kind of keep up with me, send me an email with your email address, and I'll keep up with you. And also, we're going to have some insert mesh brushes that are going to be part of this stream that I'm going to share with people. So if you do want those, please drop me a email, and I'll get them to you sooner. Eventually, I'm going to get them onto Gumroad. They are going to be free, but I'll just put them on Gumroad and start a channel for them. So my email address is Kermaco@live.com, so Kermaco @live.com. And if you forget it, you can always go to my website and get it from there too. Okay, so here I'm just kind of creasing some edges to get a little bit of that hard surface look for the helmet. Let's see what it looks like. Looks like I need a few more in the front. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. Maybe one over here, like so. So wherever I'm creasing the edges, you can see that for example here, you see how this is curved, but I don't want it to be curved. So I'll find where the edge I want is. This is the edge, and I crease it, and then I get more of a hard surface look to it, like so. Okay, that's good. That's good. This over here needs one. I think it does have one, but let's just double it down on it. There's that, and maybe add one over here. Okay, so I think I've got enough of that going on. So let's go ahead and do this. For the most part, I think it's good. I think maybe one over here would be good too. Okay. And I'm getting some kind of weird anomalies here, so I just want to make sure that I get them to be nice and straight and hard surfacey. Looks like I missed a few here, so I'll just go ahead and correct them. All right. So let's take a quick look here, and to subdivide this, before I subdivide, let's just go to dynamic subdivision again, just to make sure it's looking okay. And then maybe I need to make a few kind of adjustments with the move tool here to get these edges to be more straight. Once they're subdivided, looks like I've got one over here. And let me bring up the rest of the helmet so I can see what this looks like. It's looking good. So this part could be glass, or it could be some other type of, shiny material. Okay, so there's that. And I want this whole hat to kind of push into the model a little bit. Maybe not that much. Okay, so that's good. Actually, I do want to go a little bit further in, like so. And then bring these parts out. It's kind of neat. It created some eyes over there, which might be something I could explore later, but for now I think I'm good. Right, let's wait for this to save, and while it is, let's see if anybody has any questions. All right, so we got about 50 people watching today. That's great. And again, remember, if you want to go back and watch what's going on here over again, this will be saved, and then you can just watch it at your leisure later on. What's good about watching these live is you can ask questions and you can interact with the folks that are on. So sometimes I get really quiet audiences, and sometimes I get audiences that actually converse as well. And if you have stuff you want to say, by all means, please let me know. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm happy with this. I'm just going to go ahead and start dividing it a little bit to get a little bit more geometry. So I'm going to just turn smooth off for the first subdivision and then on subsequently. And I get this shape. And then just use H polish to maybe smooth out some of this kind of blocky looking things. So here I'm kind of liking what I'm getting. I might want to add a little bit of detail to this mask, just like some fine, maybe use damn standard, some fine lines here that kind of add more to the feature of the mask. Like so, and maybe one over here. And these are just so it could kind of catch some shadows and maybe accentuate the kind of the forms that we have over here. All right, so we have Poland in the house. Anybody else from other countries? Anybody from China? Nope. All right, so back to the move brush, and we're almost done here with the helmet. I just want to get this to kind of align in such a way where it's kind of attached to here, but there's a button you can press somewhere and the whole mask will kind of come off. And then you can maybe modify what's underneath it or inside of it. And here these edges are a little bit too sharp, so I'm making them a little bit softer on the corners. And then move this over. And I think for the most part, I'm happy with what we've got going on with the helmet. Just doing some very fine adjustments here. All right, I just want to make sure that this is kind of working on the inside as well, more or less, because I might want to have a shot where that inside part is open. And maybe put a little piece over here, like so. turn AccuCurve on for move. And accentuate maybe some of these edges. All right, I think this is good for that mask part. I think the helmet is pretty much done. I might add a little bit of, actually I'll do it right now. So I want to add a little bit of other parts that can go in here and kind of look nice. So again, I'm going to use the spotlight capability. So let's go ahead and bring Lightbox up. Go to spotlights. And these are, by the way, newer ones that I'm going to be so updating the when ZBrush comes up with a patch at some point, it's going to have some more parts. And what I did is I basically added some, and let me just make these smaller. I added the square, the circle, and the equilateral triangle to all of them because I think you can always use those. So here, from this set, I think I'm going to go with this piece right here. I'm going to duplicate it and bring the duplicate over here and then just snapshot it. So let me make sure, what am I on? So it has that same depth. Not that it matters, but that's good. Okay, so I'll snapshot that, and then I basically created this part, but it's way too long. I can go ahead and make it thinner, like so. And then, again, I could either make an insert mesh brush with it, but I'm only going to have 2 of these, so it's not that big of a deal. And I'm just going to position it. Let me choose a lighter color here. I'm just going to position it here for the helmet. Like so. And maybe turn it all the way around this way. So there's a little clip here that something attaches to. And okay, and what I want to do is duplicate that on the other side. So mirror and weld, and so we've got one on each side of the face. And maybe put in some screws or stuff over here. So again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Bring up spotlight. And any one of these doesn't matter. Let's go with this one. And I'm just going to pick the circle here. And make it a bit smaller. And just snapshot it. And don't need all of these anymore. And I've got this. Make this smaller like that. This would be a good one to make a brush with, so let's do that. So I'm going to actually make an insert mesh brush with this. So I'm just going to rotate it this way, 90 degrees. And I'll solo it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to append it to the brush I had before. So here's the brush I had before. So I'm just going to append this here. So create insert mesh, append, and here, append. Oh, I'm in move mode. Yeah, that does it. Okay, so create insert mesh, append to that, and okay. So now this brush has 2 of these, right? It has this one and this one. So now I can just go in here, and I don't need this anymore. I can hide it as well. And then just go to my helmet here, and let's say I want to put one of those round pieces that I just created. I want to put one right in here, like so. And I'll just go ahead and mirror and weld that to the other side. So now I've got one on here as well. And maybe have these be a little bit more inwards, like so. Right, and I'm keeping these a different color so I can easily spot them. And that's good. And then maybe have 2 more in the bottom part. So I'm just going to solo out the head. And I want to put another 2 over here. like so, then just move them out a bit longer. Right, so that one, this one, and go to draw mode and just pop these in like so. And let's move them in the right place, make them a bit, there we go. And maybe I want to add yet another one of these on top of this one, so I'm just going to draw a whole other one there on top of it. Maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, my navigation is really funky. I might need to start and stop ZBrush. I'm going to take a break in about maybe 8 minutes and restart ZBrush, and hopefully that'll help with some of the issues I'm having. Right, let's bring these ones back and then go to this one. Okay, we're good. All right, so here we are pretty much almost done with the helmet, so I'll just leave it at that. And then let's move on to maybe, let's see, do I need to add anything more to this? I think I've got enough glowy bits and parts that are going to look nice on this. So I'm just going to have these be lights that kind of shine down on his chest, so that, you know, if he's broken or something at night, he can light this, shine the light on this area where the processor is. Okay, so that the head is done. Now let's kind of move down to this part right here. And one of the things I'd like to do is do some housekeeping, but I'm not going to do it now. But these pieces over here that I just created, I can put these somewhere else. But for now, I'm just going to leave them with the head. Because I created a brush with them, I don't really need to use them anymore. So I'm going to collapse this down. All right, and then let's just move on to this part right here. And let me solo it out. Okay, and this part is good. Let me see if I have subdivision levels on it. I don't. Okay, so I want to divide this to get a little bit of a softer look. Again, I usually do my first subdivision level without smoothing, and then maybe do a couple more, and then we'll start sculpting on here. So the first thing I'll do is just kind of smoothen out some of these ridgy areas, and then I'll start using Damp Standard to actually put in some folds. And here I'm just going to break symmetry at this point. I don't want it to have symmetrical folds, and I'll just go in here. Let me do one other thing here. Oh. All right, I think that was the problem. My document size was off, so that fixed it. Okay, and just here, I don't have symmetry on. I'm just basically going in here and figuring out how this thing would have creases in it and folds. So it'd probably have a big one over here. All right, let's see. Do you do all your hard surface modeling in ZBrush? Pita staff is asking, and then Ola is another one. Ola back, Allison. I do most of my work nowadays in ZBrush, so about 80 to 90% of my work is done in ZBrush. I do go to Maya sometimes to retopologize, and there are some plugins that I have in Maya that I use that I like, but I can do most of what I need to do in ZBrush. And the other place I go to, another program that I use is Moment of Inspiration or Autodesk Fusion 360. So I tend to use those programs every once in a while too, depending on the shapes that I want. But for most of what I want, I can get away with using ZBrush. Because it's just so freeing, and you can do so much with it. Just You can go from organic to hard surface back to organic just very, very quickly. You don't have to, some programs they just cannot do it. And some of the things that I'm doing in here would take me forever to do in other programs. So, and I am starting to look at Blender. Blender seems to have some interesting things happening with it nowadays. So Blender is also kind of part of my tool set. Right, so I'm going to add one more subdivision level to this. And okay, so these fold up, and then when they do, they probably bend over here. So just kind of add that little bit of detail. And this is where they kind of connect up. And I've got these little clips that I made also with the spotlight capability, which is one of the coolest things that they added in 2017. I'm sorry, 2019. 2019 is one of the best versions of ZBrush that I've used so far, just from all the really cool things that they've added on. Okay, I'm making some changes here that need to be made at lower subdivision levels. That's why it's not looking like the way I want it. So here's this part, right? That. Let's bump this back up. Somebody's saying Eevee is sexy. Yeah, Eevee is pretty interesting. I think you get some really interesting images out of it. It's kind of like a game engine, more or less, though. So you could probably do similar things with Unreal or Unity. But yeah, I think that this version of Blender has finally kind of established itself as a valid tool to use. 2.8, I think, is the new version. And I know some really good artists that are doing some great stuff with it. All right, I think I'm getting close to finishing this up too. So just kind of doing some finishing touches here to get this to be more, so here this piece is not really hard surface. It's kind of an organic piece that I've just kind of thrown in there. And it adds kind of a little bit more character to my hard surface model. And maybe inflate this up a bit, like so. Yeah, I use a lot of different tools when I need to do work on them, but I'm happiest when I'm in ZBrush because it does so much, and allows me to really do some creative things that other programs usually don't. Right, so I'm kind of creating a thing here where I can attach some sort of a bolt or something, and maybe it doesn't even show up, and maybe it just kind of is underneath. All right, cool. Dean, you said you're using 2.79 for a while and you love it. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I always, when I was working in CG, getting something like a Blender for free was like a dream. And nowadays it's just, it's kind of a cool thing that artists have available to them. But value-wise, I think ZBrush is a really good value too for the amount of what it costs. And now that they have subscription, you can just use it for the time that you need it. All right, that's good. And then maybe put a little bit of a crease over here, maybe a little crease over here. All right, I think this is pretty much what I wanted to do with this. I don't want to go too crazy on the wrinkles and folds over here, but just some subtle ones would really add more to what this is doing. Okay, so that's good. And then let's keep moving down the parts list here, maybe this piece right here. So this is just kind of me adding some tertiary detail to the model. Let me make sure the right part is selected. Here we go. And again, this piece right here is just basically covering up all those mechanical parts. So I just need to kind of make this transition here between the two shapes better. So is anybody on here, does anybody work for studios that's on live? Just curious to know if you work for a game studio or so yeah, this piece right here basically is just a cover that is covering that kind of mechanical piece I showed earlier. And so all I need to worry about is the transitions between it and the other pieces. And notice here that the color scheme that I have is not any final color scheme by any chance. But it's just to kind of show me what parts are where. And it's going to be a hard transition over here. Right, somebody says they work for a well-known streaming service. Cool. Right, so kind of get this to work over here. And I might put some other parts in here just to kind of hide these transitions, but let's wait until this is saved. And I'm going to take about a maybe 5-minute break soon here, and then come back. And again, tonight I'm planning on going for at least 2 hours, possibly maybe even 3. And if I need to go more, I'll go more. I just want to kind of do as much as I can to get this finished. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm kind of liking how that's looking over here. Maybe tuck this in a little bit more. Like so. Nope. Okay, maybe I can fix that with the other part. All right, so that's good from the front. Let's look and see here. Maybe push this in. It's looking good. Put a fold over here just to indicate that there's parts underneath. All right, so this is looking good. So now I'm going to work on this part, which is basically a very simple part that, and I'll solo it out so you can see it. It's basically just an extraction from that shape. I just masked and extracted it. And it's just to kind of create some sort of a shape here that basically is holding together that cloth. And just make sure symmetry is on for this. And once I'm kind of done with placing it where it needs to go, I'll go ahead and maybe ZBrush it to get some kind of better lines for it. Synthetic 77 is asking what I'm making, and we're making a kind of a robotic figure, kind of like an all-purpose robot. So like a company like Apple or Tesla or somebody would have, maybe US Robotics would have this robot, and it would be kind of a general purpose robot. So some people might use it for, like disaster recovery. Some people could use it for military purposes. It could be helping firemen. It could be helping all sorts of different people. There could be a military version of it. So it's just basically general purpose. It's like the PC of robots. You can just have a PC and you can use it for all sorts of reasons. Maybe you can play games with them, so maybe you can get a bunch of these things and have them play soccer or some other sport. Um, so it's just basically general purpose robot, and my goal is to, just kind of create the generic version of it and maybe a type of maybe one version of it, and then after I'm done with that, I can over the years create different variations of the same robot. All right, so I think that looks okay. So this piece again, I need to, right now it looks really rough, this piece, so let's see what we can do with it. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and I'm just going to go ahead and try and zero mesh it and see if it gives me a little bit better, um, shape. All right. Kind of the home stretch over here, and there it is. Yep, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. And I'm actually going to do it one more time, which will go faster. And I'm going to do it one more time, but with half on, so it gives me less geometry. This is a little bit too dense. Try it one more time here. Okay, so now we have kind of this looks a lot better than what we had before, and I'm going to do it one more time just to kind of get as little geometry on this as possible, because it's just going to be a very simple piece. It's coming together pretty nice. Maybe one more time, see if that makes a difference. I don't think it made a big difference from before, but here we go. Yeah, it actually did. All right, one last time. All right, so let's bring everybody back. So now you can see that these parts look a lot more like just metal tubing. I might need to just adjust them a tiny bit, but they look much better than they did before. And this is exactly what I want them to do, is basically hold this cover for the mechanical parts in place. Okay, so now that that's kind of done, I can move on to the next piece. This shoulder area over here looks fine as it is, so I'm just going to leave it be. Maybe let's work on this area. This looks fine as it is too. And this is the part that actually had some protrusions over here, so let's go ahead and push these back in so it doesn't really affect the outside part of the model. I mean, eventually it would be nice if they were poking out, because they would create an interesting look with the different materials, but for now I think I kind of want them not to be there. All right, so maybe over here I can hide them as well. I want this underarm part to show, but not the rest. Okay, so that's cool. Somebody's machines are tied up in rendering. Yeah, I know. That's like the last thing that needs to be fixed, is how long rendering takes. Okay, so that's good. Now let's go over to this green part over here and see if I can fix that up at all. So here, this is actually not bad over here in the shoulder. Maybe I can add a little bit more visual interest down here, kind of accentuate maybe some of these parts. So I'm going to choose again Damien Standard, and here I'm just basically doing, maybe turn Sculptress mode on. No, maybe not. This is good topology, might as well keep it. And just go in and maybe accentuate some of these details over here. check something real quick here. I think I reset my brushes and my smooth brush is kind of a bit much more destructive than it really needs to be. So let me make sure. Nope, it's where it is. Good. And so here I'm just basically creating a little bit more of interesting looking kind of areas over here for these shapes. And just kind of accentuating what was there before. Trying to find some interesting kind of geometry that could maybe hold this piece in. And again, I'm trying to not have as many harsh edges as I can because this is something that could, I mean, part of what I was thinking is this thing could be anything from, a gnarly war machine to something that can babysit a kid. Is this from a sketch or done straight in ZBrush? There is no sketch at all. Uh, Mostly I work 100% in 3D. I mean, I do sketch. I do like to sketch and draw, and sometimes I do things that way, and sometimes I make things from my sketches. But this model was 100% done in ZBrush. And I didn't really, I mean, I had some idea of how I wanted this to end up, but it definitely changed direction quite a bit from where we started to where it is now. Which is kind of what I do with concept design is, I start out with a project and then based on what the art director needs or what the director needs or what the studio needs or whatever, they kind of direct me in a direction that they want. And sometimes I change the direction myself. So it depends on how much freedom I have. But what's nice about this is a sketch is kind of once you're done with the sketch, you're locked in. But when you're designing in 3D, you can iterate and create all sorts of different variations, and then you can include and not include any of them. In 2D, I mean, with Photoshop, you can do a lot of that too, but again, you can't look around your object. So a lot of the concept designers that do their work in 2D nowadays, they do amazing, beautiful images. And then when it goes to the model shop, the modelers are like, what do I do with this part? And how does this look from behind? And how do these things work? So 2D sketch is really good to kind of get an idea and create a mood and a feel, but eventually when these things are going to be in 3D, if they're in a movie or a game and they have to move and do stuff, eventually they're going to end up in 3D. So if they're designed in 3D, that work is already done. Hopefully FX Node that answers your question. A lot of the newer, a lot of the top concept designers and newer concept designers all work in 3D. Environment artists, all sorts of design is being done in 3D now. Not to say that there's no room for 2D. 2D is still awesome, but knowing 3D and working in 3D gives you a different level of freedom that might not have been there before. All right, so here I'm just kind of creating an area where he can rotate these things and then it would work. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm just kind of working on this green part, and I think, let me solo it out. Yep, so it goes, this arm is part of it too. So I'm just kind of tightening up, just very little work here, just tightening up some of these shapes so they are more defined. And also I'm figuring out these transitions between these shapes and the other shapes, which is really important. And for that, I'm using industrial design techniques of figuring out how these things attach to each other and how they would work. Right, and I do have symmetry on for this. because I want both sides to be the same, and then I can turn symmetry off and individually modify each side to have a little bit more character. Overall, so far, I've spent about, so online, doing this live, I've spent about 2 hours each session, and we've had 6 episodes, so that's 12 hours, and then 7 episodes, that's 14 hours, and then maybe off screen I've spent maybe 5 or 6 hours on it as well. So it's not a lot of time really to get this. And usually when I'm working, I'm not talking. I'm basically just working away. So that makes me a little bit faster as well. All right. So now I got to figure out, this thing is going to bend quite a bit this way, so I need to add a little bit of this would have been good for me to break symmetry for this, but I'm going to put in the kind of the main bending areas first and then deal with the asymmetry later. Okay. All right, so that's kind of working from the front. Oh, we got some of that bottom part poking out there. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this is. Yep. So I basically have different pieces overlapping each other, so every once in a while some part of it shoots out and I need to put it back in like there. Okay. So it's basically going to be kind of bending this way. And this piece right here is, I'm going to put some muscles and tubes through it later on. I actually have an insert mesh brush for muscles, and I'll be adding those in a little bit. Again, figuring out what the transition is between this part and then the metallic part. All right. All right, so the stomach part is looking a little bit better, and then let me see if I need to do anything up here. And maybe, I don't know if this is overlapping this part, so I'm going to hide this just to make sure that I'm doing right by these parts here. And yep. Let me see here. Just inflate. By the way, one of the things I figured out is sometimes when I'm sculpting, it looks like it's not responsive. I figured out why that is, and that is because sometimes I press D or Shift, and then that basically creates a dynamic subdivision version of it, which is, going to be a lot more geometry, so it's not going to be as snappy and fast. Let me increase the intensity here. And again, this is the part that's actually going to be underneath that piece that we did earlier. So I just need to, again, make sure the transitions are working. Create a place for this to actually show up like that. So that's looking good inside there, and maybe have this part overlap a bit. And for that, I'm just going to use clay tubes. Right. It's so funny. We had a bunch of people on, and then they went away, and now we have a bunch of new people on. Numbers of people watching is going up and down. It's kind of funny. All right. So the neck is kind of okay, like so. All right. Actually, I think this piece right here, I'm going to go ahead and maybe add some more subdivision levels to it. So let's divide it maybe a couple of times so it doesn't look so low res. So I'm going to turn smoothing off, divide, divide, smoothing on, divide, divide. So now it kind of looks more like it's a metallic piece. Okay, and maybe do the same thing with this one right here. And let's divide it a couple of times. So I guess we're going to have to wait for the thing to save. Give it a few minutes. It's really nice that ZBrush saves things every once in a while because, eventually, there could be a crash, and if there is one, at least we have something to go back to. All right, so there's this piece, and let me just kind of add some hard edges to it. Again, I don't really need to add too much detail because these are just going to show up as little pieces. This might not even show up if I don't, but it will add some visual interest to the whole model. Let's see how that's looking in there. It's fine. I think I don't need to belabor that. All right, so let's move on to these pieces. So here's this one, same thing. And I think that's good just like that. And then this one. And that's good just like that too. And then keep moving down this list. Nope, what are we on? Yep, okay, so I'm just going to divide this a couple of times. Smooth, divide, divide, that's good. Move on to this piece. Whoa, I think I'm just dividing that same one. Here we go. Right, divide, 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 divide. So basically I've done this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece, and they're all looking okay. What's this right here? Okay, so these are interesting pieces. So let's go ahead and divide these a couple of times and smooth them out. Go back to here and maybe get rid of some of these ridges. So I'm going to use and these are basically the little clasps that hold on to this part. Maybe move these further forward like that and over. Yep. So they're coming out a bit like so. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and bring that other piece back now. And have this just kind of be there, like so. Right, I might need to individually move these into place, turn symmetry off. So I need to mask this one. All right, that's good. And then this one right here. And move it into place. All right, that's good. Okay, so far so good. And I think these I'm just going to leave as is. The one on the back is good. And I don't know what something happened here. The colors changed. Okay, so that's all good right there. And I'll be adding different materials to it. So I kind of have to figure out what to do here. And I kind of want to leave this part as loose as possible because this is going to be where it's going to bend. So let me choose theme standard here. And just do that to it. Okay, so that's good. And then I put these pieces over here earlier, so those are going to be there kind of like muscles. I might put a muscle over here too. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do it or not. Okay, let's see. This one over here, has it been divided? No, it has not. So let's divide this one up too. That looks good. Maybe I want it to be more faceted, so I'm just going to redo the divisions. 3, and then, oops, don't want to do that. Let's move, divide, divide. Yep, that's exactly the way I want it. So that's done. I think the forearm is divided. No. Okay, let's do that. So, all right, so now I can put in little features into this part. So I kind of like the way this is. It looks very kind of CG, but it also looks like something that, you know, was 3D printed or generated. There's a little bit of an overhang over here of this thing. I don't know what it is. Ah, there it is. I can fix that. So it's just basically cleaning up and putting some fit and polish on the model, getting it to its final stages. Okay, so that fixed that. That's good. The hands, I'm going to basically, I've kind of sculpted the fingers, but I might want to work on the hands a little bit. And let's see, is there anything else I need to do up here? Nope, so I guess I could work on the hands. So here again, I'm just going to use some clay tubes, be on this part of the model. Let's see, no mask, and then just kind of create some better definition to these hands over here. All right, let's see. Any questions? No questions? Maybe I'll ask you guys some questions, guys and gals. So my question to you is, how did you find out about the stream? How come you're watching this? Did you know about it from before? Did you stumble onto it? Right, so now just kind of put in some more detail. I would eventually like to UV this thing and take it into Substance Painter. So maybe I'll do that at some point. I don't know if I'm going to have time tonight. I'm probably just going to assign materials in Keyshot for our final render for it. Okay. Wow, nobody is answering where they heard about this. All right, let me ask this question. Anybody in here watch all of the streams live? Every single one of them. Right, so I'm kind of happy with the way the hands look here. Maybe, no, they're fine. Is this chat thing working? There we go. At this point, maybe I'll turn Sculptress mode on just to get a little bit more resolution here. Some of the details I'm adding. Darkstone Digital Restream. Well, I didn't even know who these people are. That's cool. So how does this restream thing work? Do they just stream it over another channel or something like that? Darkstone. I'll have to look that up. Not familiar with it. All right, so kind of coming to a point with the hands where, again, I'm probably gonna, have these be articulated in one way or another, and some of the poses. So I don't want to do too much work here in the kind of the A pose or the bind pose of it, but at least have something that looks a little bit interesting. And these are not just your typical hands. These are kind of mechanical special hands that have coils inside, and they open and close them up. Again, these have to be able to lift heavy weights and do all sorts of acrobatics because of the type of the robot. Okay, so that's good for the hands. And let's look at the back here. Figure out what we're going to do here. This is looking okay. So I'm going to go in here again, break symmetry, go and put in some lines. Okay, so one person searched 3D modeling ZBrush game dev, Oh, okay. So you basically just do it based on a search. That's interesting. So you search for things and these streams show up. That's cool. By the way, if you guys want to see more of my work, just I should mention that you can go to my website, kermaco.com, so kermaco.com, which is this website right here. Let me bring it up. It's a little bit stale. I have to update it with some new stuff. I will. It's coming up. Summer for me is kind of the time when I do a lot of that work. So it's just Kermaco, kermaco.com, and it's this right here. And you can see some of the works that I've done. So these are all done in ZBrush, 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 ZBrush. Uh, this one I did a while back. Part of it is ZBrush, part of it is Maya. A lot of these bottom ones are ZBrush, so these are just the vehicles. And my mechs, this one was done 100% in ZBrush right here. Um, this one was kind of mostly ZBrush as well. And then this one was Maya and ZBrush. So these are older models, and then moving to the newer ones. And I'm going to have some new mechs to show off soon too. So it's Kermaco, Kermaco.com, and that links you to a lot of my other social media. And so my Instagram is where I post most of the models. And as you can see here, as I'm working on this, so this was kind of the last version that we worked on, right? And then as I moved forward in time, this is kind of what I did. And when I rendered this, I didn't really think the head looked very interesting. And that's when I took it in this other direction. So here's a non-photorealistic render of what we're working on. And then I did some other renders of it as well. So here's one. Here's another. Here I'm just basically testing out some renders. So my Instagram is, you can go to it directly from my website as well. So if you guys want to keep in touch and keep track of what I'm working on, my website is probably the best way to do that. And you can always send me an email. My email address, contact information is on my website as well. And you'll probably see many renders of this in on my website over time. Because when I work on my models, I just don't do it for one shot, one screenshot. They're actually physical models that I continue to work on over time and enhance. And you can see that with some of my mechs. You can see that I've got a lot of renders and a lot of different variations, a lot of different compositions with the same exact model. So, you know, reuse is kind of a good thing. A lot of models that you see online look really great, but you might see different angles of them, but you might not see different iterations on them, and that's because a lot of times they are specifically made for that one shot. To me, these are like, you take them out of the drawer every once in a while, you make modifications to them, and then you make a different variation, maybe make them better. So they're kind of living pieces of artwork. And as long as I can work on them, I will. I always create new stuff, but every once in a while I bring up a oldie but goodie and work on it as well. All right, so the butt's looking good here. Let's see, from the side, it's looking okay. Create some more severe kind of folds down here. Again, I don't have symmetry on, so I'm just basically getting different variations of the same thing. And I'm creating a place for this to bend. So this material here that I'm working on, this green material, is also flexible material. So all these lighter pieces, so all these pieces that are this color, are basically pieces of metal. They don't move or bend, right? So this doesn't bend, this doesn't bend, this doesn't bend, this doesn't bend, but the green stuff does bend. So that's kind of more of a material that has some give to it. Okay, so we're pretty much done from up here to kind of the groin area. This piece right here, I was contemplating whether or not I want to divide it. Let's go back, go to it, these pieces. So right here, I was kind of contemplating whether or not I want to subdivide them or not. So let me just make sure that they're, first of all, on their own. And then let's see what dividing them looks like. That's good. And I'm also going to give them a different material and color. So here, let's turn mRGB on and fill object. Maybe not white, but let's grab maybe this gray color. There we go. Okay, go back to white here. So this basically is kind of, again, a piece that holds these two pieces together. Let's move down. I think the fingers I'm kind of done with. I don't want to really work on them anymore. This piece here has multiple subdivision levels, so let's go up in subdivision levels, and it goes to this. And I'm just going to go ahead and make some variations to it. Looks like I put in some cut lines for it. I might just kind of dim those down a bit now. Maybe I'll do them again later. Maybe I'll do them now. Okay, so here I'm just going to go down subdivision levels, delete the higher subdivision level, and redo the dividing. Okay, level 4. That looks good. I think the cut lines, I'm just not going to use them for there. Maybe these pieces just fit through the leg. This part I worked on before, so I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think I'm going to change this in-between part, the knee part. And then let me see if I can work on this part a little bit. So I'm almost done with the model here. And just maybe use H-polish to get some good, crisply defined surfaces over here. So that piece is looking okay. And then I got to work on kind of the foot or the hand part on below. I think that other than that, we're pretty much almost done with all the sculpting and modeling on this. I think I've done a lot of stuff with the hand here. Maybe I'll do a little bit more touch up. I'm on the wrong piece, this one. All right, so let me see. I think there are some questions coming up. Would you pose in ZBrush or go down the rigging route in Maya? I guess it depends. Yeah, it does depend. In this case here, I'm just going to pose this thing in ZBrush. I'm just going to do it using Transpose Master. I already did a pose. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but I already had a pose here that I did with Transpose Master, this one right here. Right, so I just used T-Pose Master to do this pose. So again, this thing is pretty ambidextrous, so it could kind of be holding something with its foot, hand, and it could be holding something else. So, and this is all done with Transpose Master. So we're going to do that as soon as I'm done, which I'm getting close to here. Okay, let's look at these feet some more. Push this in. So this actually kind of comes out of this one area, and it's going to be, the transition is going to be a little bit tough, but I think I can pull it off. That's good. All right, and again, the feet are good. And also, again, remember earlier when I was talking about doing different folders for things, I have 2 folders for heads, and I also have different variations of feet. So I've got, I think, 2 or 3. So this was this one right here that we had, and then I've got this one, which basically the feet kind of form this shape, right? So they could either form this shape or they could form this other shape. So they could either kind of stand up like this, or they could lay down. If he's going to run or something, they would then the feet would lay down into this configuration. and they'd be kind of like a shoe, and these parts could even come in closer. So this looks more like a foot per se, and then this is kind of a different look for, oops, didn't want those guys. And this would look more like this. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done with the sculpting of most of this. Now it's time to add a little bit more detail onto it. So I'm just going to use that brush that I made over here, which I should save. So let me do that real quick and call it insert mesh 2. Okay, and then let's start kind of using some of these parts and adding them to the model. So maybe I can add a couple of those. So these kind of I'm thinking of as lights. So maybe add a couple of lights that could go over here on this part. I think I chose a draw size of 4 for this. So let me just go back to 4. So they could all be consistent sizes, and then this goes up there. Okay. And maybe put a couple on the back over here. So let's just go to that part. I need to freeze the subdivision levels on this before I add it. I wonder if I want to get rid of that corner, or let's try just putting it normally, see what that does. Push it in and over like this. Nope, I don't like that. Maybe. Over here. All right, so right brush, this one. What just happened? Okay, just move this. All right, let's see, there's some feedback here. There's something that's being said, I think looks like Chinese. It looks like General Grievous would mix with the battle droid. Well, why not? Those are good designs. I'll take it. I thought General Grievous was a really good character, but I don't think they did much with it. I think they should have done more with it. He looked like more like a cartoon character. I mean, the design was beautiful, but the character itself was kind of wasted, I think. Maybe, just maybe, there will be a Disney movie on just General Grievous. How about that? All right. Okay, so that's going to go over there, and then let's see where else we can add parts. Where else would we have, well, maybe we can add some of these round parts over here to the knee so that when arrows hit it, it bounces off. Too big. Right, and then maybe right, so there are those pieces, and maybe there'll be a different material. And I just want to put some cut lines on some of these. So for cut lines, I like to use MAH cut. Right. Um, maybe I need more lazy radius here. FX Node, you're talking about losing interest in all the Star Wars movies that are the initial trilogy. I don't know. It has its place, I guess. Star Wars always has kind of I have a soft spot for Star Wars because the first one just really kind of shook up everything that I know about science fiction. It just made such a big impact. Nowadays, there's so many great movies like that. You kind of are jaded, but in those days, when Star Wars first came out, there weren't too many movies like Star Wars. Maybe Star Crash. Right, and then I'm kind of liking this angle, but I want to do something else with it over here. Okay, and maybe use clay tubes here to push this in a bit. Yeah, there were some good designs in the prequels. I definitely agree. I've got all the art books, and there were some really cool. They did some great designs. The thing about Star Wars, it's got some amazing designers that work on it. Doug Chiang and Ryan Church, um, all these people that did a lot of work on the initial Star Wars. I think they did. They still work on it, and they do really cool designs. It's funny because even though Star Wars is very science fiction, I think it's kind of retro-y looking now. Like I just watched the trailer for the new one, and it looked really kind of the sci-fi is kind of lo-fi, I guess is what I want to say. I mean, the bad guys kind of still have very kind of futuristic looking stuff, but everything else looks like it's, and which is kind of a good design choice. It's aged, but it's aged in such a way where it kind of looks believable in a way. All right, so I've got those cut lines there for that. I think this thing just is one piece, fits in this way. I could put a cut line that goes down. Let's try it, why not? I need more subdivision levels. No. Let's see if this works. I'm liking it so far. You know what's funny is that in Star Wars, like some of the earlier designs, like TIE fighters and X-wings or whatever, those are such strong designs. There have been so many other spaceships and things that have come up after that, but very few have those same iconic. Uh, Ralph McQuarrie, I think, did it. So just like the Millennium Falcon, it's like such an amazing design. A lot of the newer movies don't have compelling designs like that. And those were all done in gouache and painting, which is kind of funny. And now people have all these amazing tools, and it still kind of holds up. The AT-ATs, the AT-STs, I mean, those are just such beautiful designs. Darth Vader's helmet. Like, you look at Darth Vader's helmet and it's so cool, and then you look at Kylo Ren's helmet and it's like, what were they thinking? It looks like the back of a car. Sorry, whoever the designer is, but um, I think they could do better. It looked like they were wabi-sabiing it in this version. It looked in the trailer and they're like doing some stuff to it. All right, so let's see if this adds any more to it. It actually looks pretty good. I might actually do the same thing up here. So I'm going to go back up here, obliterate all those cut lines I put in, and try out the same kind of thing that I did down here, see if that works better. All right, so some more stuff in Chinese. If anybody can translate that for me, that'd be great. Okay. No, maybe it doesn't look as good over here, but maybe I'll do this to it. Maybe instead of this coming outwards, it's going to go in. See if that helps it. How are we doing on time? Wow, it's 9 o'clock. I should be done, but I'm going to continue on. And I didn't take a break either. This stuff's so much fun. I'm just going to go. I think I'm going to go for an extra hour today, just so, because we got to get this thing posed and rendered still. All right. No, I don't like that either. How about if let's wait for this to save. How do you change the color to that green for my icons? Oh, here. You mean the blue, or what are you talking about specifically? Butter, popcorn, mime. Butter, popcorn, yummy 8. What was your question? How do I get? Are you talking about the overall UI colors or your specific colors of the blue colors? Oh, the green behind the icons. Oh, it just if you go to preferences here, and you go to iColors, which is interface colors. They're over here, and if you just hover on each one of them, it tells you what they are. So I think push button. I don't know which one of these is it, but I spent some time just kind of picking up a UI color scheme a while back. But this is how you do it. So preferences and eye colors, and then you can just basically choose the different colors in there. It works pretty good. I think I'm just going to leave this be here the way it is, and maybe maybe cut in some. Let me take a few risks here just to kind of see if it would make any sense. Yeah, that does make sense. So maybe put in like little areas here where it kind of goes out like this. Maybe put another one here. Let's see if that adds any visual interest to the model. It does. So they get to stay. Yeah, it's always fun to customize your ZBrush UI. People ask me for my UI all the time, and I tell them it's useless for them because everybody should create their own custom UI for ZBrush. ZBrush should work the way you work, and with a customized UI, you get that. And if you want to customize your UI, there's ZBrush guides. Pablo Munoz's website has some really good ideas of what to do and how to do it. And I highly recommend, if you're going to use ZBrush, to customize it to your own way of working. I teach ZBrush in schools, and when I do teach them there, I try to use the default UI just because everybody's just new to it, and pretty soon we start making our own user interfaces. And when I go look around, I can see a bunch of different students have different user interfaces that they've made, and they really like working that way. Of course, the better students have the better interfaces, it seems to me, because they spend the time. All right, so I'm kind of liking that little bit of extra stuff I added over there. I don't know if I want to add one more here. Let's see if that works too. And polish it down. Okay. All right, so I think modeling wise, we are good to go. I don't know if I want to add anything else to this. At this point, I think I'm just going to call it done. So let's go ahead and do a quick save on it. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, so it's 9:04 right now, and I'm going to take maybe about 6-minute break, and I'll come back and we will continue working on the model. Okay. Uh, we're back, and let's see here. My camera is really blurry today. I don't know what's going on with it. Let me see if I can fix it. Here we go. All right. One other thing here. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is start to pose this and then take it into Keyshot and render it. I think I'm going to do the rendering first. I'm going to actually take it into Keyshot first and determine the materials. So just want to make sure that everything I don't want is hidden. And then as soon as the save is done, we can continue. All right. FX node, I don't know what your, oh, you taught a bit of, okay, you taught Nuke, okay. Yeah, are you a compositor then? Okay, so we're going to do, let's go ahead and do this. All of this is good, so we're going to go ahead and turn Keyshot on. Actually, before I do that, let me just do a few BPR renders here to see what that looks like. Just straight in ZBrush. So here I'm just going to go ahead and go to render sets, and let's see what this thing looks like as a wireframe. Maybe let's go ahead and choose a different filter here. Let's see what this looks like. Not bad. Just get some silhouette action going on. That's good too. All right, yeah, I'm kind of liking that. Let's try a couple other BPR renders. What I like about the BPR non-photorealistic stuff that's new is that you can get some really good ideas of things to work on. So you can just kind of jump in, like here, for example, this is kind of a neat little render look for it. And so this kind of looks like it's painted. It doesn't even look like it's a 3D object. And then, of course, I can pose this and it would look like it was done in Photoshop. It won't even look that way. Let's see what it looks like as a sketch. That's kind of cool. I love this one. You get some really interesting effects with it. And here we go. I am liking that a lot right here. So this is not even going to Keyshot. This is just rendering it in right in ZBrush and getting a really interesting kind of more organic looking sketch look to it. And again, I can do this from multiple angles. Let's turn perspective on and maybe look at it this way. Let's see what that does. And again, these take very short amount of time and you get some really interesting results. Let's put the floor on and let me make sure he is on the floor. First of all, he is. So let's turn the floor on and let's see if we get some good shadow action with it too. Right, well, it's kind of interesting. What just happened to the background? Wow. All right, well, that's kind of neat. Floor just kind of really does something funky to it. But I might need to just, maybe flat shadows is what I need to add. Let's see. Yeah, this like here is looking really, I love the look of this non-photorealistic renderer with the model because it just makes it look so cool. And I mean, if somebody's really good at Photoshop and really good at painting, they might get one of these done, but just to get all of these in the different angles, and haven't even tweaked any of the settings yet. This is just like out of the box filter. Okay, so that's all good, but let's take it into Keyshot and do some more work in Keyshot on it. So I'm going to turn Keyshot on, and let's shoot this over to Keyshot. All right, so it's going to take a few minutes for ZBrush to send all the parts. Let me bring Keyshot over. No, I guess I can't until it's done importing. And again, the color scheme I have here, I'm not really married to it. I can change the color scheme to be a little bit different as needed. So it's still loading all the different parts into Keyshot. And Keyshot tends to use up a lot of the computer resources, so if we see a slowdown or anything, let me know, and I will maybe, okay, here we go. Here it is in Keyshot, and as soon as I get this thing to move, here we go, let's pop it over here, like so. All right, so here's the model in Keyshot. This is just using the existing ZBrush materials, which is fine. And now we can start adding some of our own materials. So I kind of have a material here that I want to test out. No, that didn't work out too well. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose some plastic material. Let's say hard plastic, textured. And for all these parts, I'm just going to, right now the color doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put one material here and use that same material over here. And I'm just basically right now getting all of the parts that I have that were that green color that are going to be kind of not malleable objects to be this kind of hard plastic. So there we go. There's those. And I think I had one here in the back of the neck, and I think I have one inside here. So let's see if I can figure out which one it is. Sometimes ZBrush does or the bridge does this where it sends the model over, but it doesn't show it to me over here. I don't know if I need to expand this out somehow to get it. I'm actually going to close Keyshot and resend my model to it. Okay, so I'm going to do this one more time. Send it over to Keyshot. Let's see if this time all the different parts come through. Oh wow, FX Node. I started on the Amiga as well. That was good. Did you have a video toaster? I think I still have that somewhere. I don't have my Amiga, but I still have my video toaster. Okay, so that's exactly what we wanted. So here are all the different parts. So doing everything over again. I'm just basically assigning this material, this blue material, to everything that is that part, and then I'll group them all together. And then I don't know. See, the thing is, I've named all of these, but it's kind of hard to read them because they're pretty small. I don't know if there's a, I think maybe if I right click on it and say select, um, select parts with material now. Oh, by the way, the other also thing to do here is I'm going to put KeyShot in performance mode so it's not really chewing up processing. And then let me see if I can find it this way. I think, yeah, they have this new feature in KeyShot where if you just hover over, here we go, this is the part I want to hide. If you hover over a part, it kind of shows it to you in the parts list. It's so funny, these programs always keep getting better and better and better. All right, so these are all the parts that I want to have be kind of the metallic, non-movable parts. And here what I'm going to do is go into material and find all of the materials that are that blue color and link them together. So I'm just basically manipulating one material. And here they are, link materials, so they're just one. And now if I just change pick a different type of material, then they all will change at the same time. And now I got to figure out what kind of color we want for this. I'm thinking maybe I'll go to some of these really cool materials that come with it. Let's see, these ones. And let's pick some of these kind of really cool materials that they've got here. Yeah, then you went to, I went to Softimage too. Wow, that we basically have had the same paths. I didn't do it on SGI though. I started using Softimage when it first came to Windows NT and then XSI. That's pretty wild. Let's see what this color looks like. That's kind of cool. Kind of too yellow though. And again, here I'm in performance mode, so it's pretty fast. And also, it doesn't look as good though, which is fine. I mean, I can always jump out of it to kind of see what this looks like. And these materials create a cool metallic look. I don't know if I like this color though, so let me pick a different color. Let's see. Oh, maybe I can't change the material of these materials, or the color of these materials. Okay, let's see if they have a green. They do. That's, yeah, how about this one? Nope. Or this. That's what I love about KeyShot is you can just kind of keep trying out these different materials until you find one that looks good. I'm kind of not excited by a lot of these, so I'm just going to go back to paint and see metallic paint. Because I know metallic paint I can change the colors, so let's go ahead and choose this for now and then choose a different color. It's good. Let's edit that material and maybe darker version of that green. Wow, that didn't really affect it much. Maybe I need to change this to, here we go. All right, and I kind of like the color of it, but maybe make it a little bit rougher so it's not as shiny. In the right direction. Okay, I don't have any flakes in it. Samples, visibility, that's good. And Light's good, but I want this to be even darker. Maybe this too. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe let's see if this color looks any better. No. I'm still getting that really kind of shiny look, and I don't want it. I want it to be a little bit more dull. Okay. Maybe not use that kind of material. Maybe use this rough metallic paint. And let's start out with this color right here and choose, see what this looks like. Nope, this one, here we go. I'm kind of liking this one more. And I'm kind of getting the little bit of the coloration I want, which is good. And let's go ahead and edit that material. It's good. So I'm basically adding the paint to the surface. And let's see if I can make this paint the color of it a little bit different. So here I'm just going to choose one of this occlusion here, and let's map that into color. And let's make the occluded ones go into here, and unoccluded I'm going to actually make green. Like so. Let's see if that looks good. Not too much occlusion here. I guess I could have added some more subdivision levels to this part, but it's okay. All right, I think that's good for these parts. I think that kind of settles those. So now let's find something that looks good for this part right here. So let's edit that material. And for that, I'm just going to choose, let's go back to materials here and choose a textured. Let's put orange in there for now. See what that looks like. Okay, that's okay. The material is good, but I'm not really that excited about it. Let's try something shiny, see if that looks any better. I'll try shiny white. Give it a few minutes to cook. That looks good. I'm kind of getting a little bit geometric chatter over here, so I might need to fix that back out in ZBrush. So let me do that right now. Just going to pause this for a minute, go back to ZBrush. And for this part right here, I might need to add a couple of subdivision levels just to kind of get some of that chatter that's over here out. So it's about 4 subdivision levels, and then I'll just smooth it out. All right, so that kind of removes a little bit of that chatter that I had, and then just go back into Keyshot here, unpause it, and then send the stuff back into Keyshot. The Keyshot bridge works really well with ZBrush. It sends stuff back and forth really nicely, and that's what's happening now. Is it's just getting a newer version of the white part in the middle. And we'll keep all the materials, we'll keep all the work that we've done so far. Okay, here we go. Now we've got the new part and it's looking so much better than before. Okay, and I don't know if I want to keep this white and shiny. I think I might go for something more rough and maybe pick a lighter gray. That makes more sense. And then I also want to make this part that color too. And possibly the hands and possibly the feet. Okay. And that's looking good. I can, at this point, maybe go in here and find where all those pieces were and link the materials for them. I should not have chosen gray because everything else is gray. Maybe choose this color for now. That looks interesting. And let's see all of the parts that have these materials. We'll just go ahead and group them together. And now I'll just choose a different color for them. I guess I could just kind of stay with the material and just go to colors. Let's see what this looks like. It's kind of cool. How about this one? That's neat. This one, good, but a bit too dark. All right, let's go to some traditional colors here. And deep forest green, rustic gray. Let's see what rustic gray looks like. That looks okay. Kind of want to get a little bit more contrast between this part and this part. Right now they're kind of melding together. So how about this fluorescent green? Here we go. Something like that. So here I'm just kind of playing around trying to figure out a good color combination. How about a really light gray like this? Nope. All right, so I think I'm going to get the contrast with hue, not with the value. So let's see what red looks like. It's pretty neat. Try some earthy colors. How about an earthy green? Disappears. Earthy orange. That's kind of nice. How about this yellow? All right, I'm just kind of exploring right now. Just kind of doing some crazy choices as well. Let's go ahead and pick some Pantone colors. Give some more room for the color area. There we go. I like that. This might be better. How about this? Nope. Okay, so I think this is going to be the color to choose. I'll try one more just. Oh, I'm glad I did. That kind of looks cooler. Okay, so this is the color we're going to go with for the body. And so we'll just kind of stick to that. And then let's look at these parts right here. I think I like them just the dark gray that they are. The hands, I want them to be rubber, so I think there is a rubber in here somewhere. Yep, and so I've got what? Fabricated nylon. Just try just normal rubber. What this looks like. That's kind of cool. How about this one? What if they were gelatinous? No, that's too much. I think under plastic there should be some rubber options here too. There we go. Yeah, I think this is the one. Waiting for Acacia to catch up. Okay, just did. So that's cool for that. And what I'm going to do here is copy that material and paste it to the feet. And they're linked together, so whatever I change will change with it. And here, let's try and see if I can get another interesting color for this. So we want the hands to be seen, and so that's why I don't want them to be darker color. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some other colors that might work better for it. Let's try to do something just now. How about something like this? Still no. I think maybe I'll just leave them black. All right. And I want to actually use that same material, so I'm going to copy it also. And I want to use that exact same material for this. Right here. And then these parts, I want them to be some sort of metallic parts. So let's go to metals and aluminum, a basic aluminum, and kind of a brushed basic aluminum. That's good, but I want to change the color of it. So here, I'll just go to color mode, maybe choose a darker metallic, and I could probably subdivide that a few times. I don't know if it's going to show up at this distance. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to use that exact same material on these parts. That's good. And maybe these parts as well. All right, so I've got that kind of dark aluminum happening as well. And maybe apply those parts to these little hooks. And let's bring that part we hid back, which is right here. Now for this, I'm going to use some sort of transparent material. So let's go ahead and go into plastic and clear plastic, and let's try this gray one. See how that looks. How about orange? Orange is good. Light's kind of catching it in a funny way here. Maybe lighter gray, matte. Let's try cloth. Some cloths, maybe that would look interesting too. Let's see what that looks like. This color. Scale is way off on this. How about some nylons? That's kind of cool. But I want it to be transparent. Let's see if I can do that. No, I don't want to edit the graph. I just want to edit the material. Edit material and refractive index. So it doesn't give us the option for transparency. That sucks. Okay, let's choose plan stick transparent. Let's go for that. Here we go. Okay, so I've got some of the things happening that I want here, but I definitely don't want it to be white. So it's a diffuse color. I think the color is coming from a texture. So I'm going to check that off. And let's see if I can put in actually a manual color for this. Okay, I'm kind of liking that. Let's put a hue to it. So it's kind of closer to this stuff, but it's still different. Okay, and that's good. And if when I choose the lighting mode, a different lighting mode, I think that's going to stand out a bit more. So I'm happy with that. And all right, so let's kind of work on the face area over here. So I'm going to copy this material and paste, link it to this part. Let's try and see what happens if I paste link it to the helmet as well. It's kind of disappearing, so maybe I want to make this a different material color. So here, change this to a lighter color. Nope. And I'm going to unlink the material here. I'm going to actually make the helmet a different material. So let's go ahead and see what kind of, maybe shinier material would be nice. Oh no, I messed this one up. It's fine. Okay. I'm actually going to pick this exact color from here and change it up. So I realize this isn't really ZBrush per se, but I am using the bridge, so it's going to work out to look pretty good. Okay, and then with the, make it a bit rougher. I'm going to change the refractive index to 1. Wow, that just messed it up. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Here we go. Let's try 1.5. And specular transmission is good. Diffuse, maybe. It's good too. And specular, that's good. Diffuse transmission. All right, so let's go ahead and edit them. Let me assign a different material to the helmet. Let's go to paint. And man, it'd be interesting if I just kind of did something really wild like this. But change the color of it to something much darker. Nope, too much. All right, so let's just try this. That's what I love about Keyshot is you can like do so much prototyping with colors that you can kind of get to something that is more compelling for what you want. Kind of want something a bit stronger, so I'm not going to do metallic. I'm just going to do shiny black. Let's see what that looks like. All right, maybe shiny white. All right, I'm liking the white. Okay, so now let's color this visor. It's going to be something that's transparent, so I'm going to go to glass. Maybe this kind of color glass. It's okay. Maybe this. Maybe I don't want it to be this transparent, so maybe choose like a solid piece of glass like this. What if it's not solid? There we go. No, it's okay. How about this? There, I kind of like that smoked glass look. All right, since I added that white there on the helmet, I think it kind of persuaded me to add more of that to different areas because it kind of looks cool. So maybe I will copy this material and paste it. Let's see, what else could look cool in white? These, yep, that makes it look cool. And then maybe these could be white as well. Okay, I think I'm liking this so far. I wonder if these would look good in white as well if I did that. Yep, that works. That works even better. Okay, so now let's add some emissive parts or some lights to this. So let's go to materials here, pick a light material like so. And we'll pick some area lights and just make these what they are, which are lights. Why is that whole thing being lit? All right, here we go. That's interesting. It's not accepting just that one piece. Okay, so that's a light, that's a light. And then I think I had a couple over here, yep. Oh, I know what's going on. These are, I didn't separate these ones out, that's why. So it's basically just this whole one piece, it's considering it to be that way. That's fine. I bet you I didn't separate these out either. Nope, okay. That's cool. We'll just have these 4 lights here for now, and maybe some on the helmet. So drag this over to here, so there are some lights there. And I think I had some stuff on the bottom. Nope, I forgot to detach those two. That's fine. But the ones on the back work, so those are good for lights. And I'm going to color these lights here, edit material. Right now they're blue, but maybe, let's see what they look like, kind of red. No, that blue's fine. Okay. All right, so I'm kind of good with the materials at this point, and I'm just going to go ahead and figure out a good composition here. So let's go ahead and pick a good camera. Let's try to see what 50 millimeters looks like. That's good. It's 35. That's good too. I think let's try 80 millimeter. Okay, that's fine. That looks perfect. So let's say this is going to be the angle I'm going to pick for it. So I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes until it's done, and then let's go ahead and start trying some different environments for it. Right. So let's start looking at this indoors and just throwing some 3 lights on it. Get this background to be gray. So I'm not really dealing with the background, I'm just kind of dealing with the lighting, and then let's see if this looks any good. Let's try this material, this background. No, that washed it up. And so I'm just basically trying out different backgrounds, and let's try that. That's nice. All right, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and add a ramp to this. Actually, if I do that, it's going to break my link to ZBrush. I think I'm just going to leave it for now. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to try something different where I'm going to try lighting it myself. So let's go with this and bring the brightness down, contrast up. And I'm kind of letting these lights do a little bit of the work just to see if it creates an interesting. And then maybe add some lights myself. Maybe small radius, but a lot more intense. And then just move this around to find a good place for it. I can also just pick where I want the highlight to go. How about right there? Here we go. All right. And one of the things that actually makes this jump out a little bit more also is adding occluded ground shadows. All right, I'm going to add one more thing here. So at this point, I'm kind of not worrying about going back to ZBrush. And I'm just going to go ahead and add, let's say, a backdrop ramp. All right, let's see where that is. Wow, it's gigantic and not where I want it to be. So let's pick that ramp. Move it. So I'm just going to rotate it and put it behind. And so let's see where the angle is rotation 180, 180, and minus 14. Let's say just a 0 for that. Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to resize it as well. Snap to ground. And let's put the translation of x to 0 and translation of z to 0 as well. Okay, so there's our ramp. Maybe move it up a bit. No, it's good where it is. Okay. All right, 0 again on this, 0 again on this. Okay, and let's give a material to that ramp. Maybe something not so shiny. Maybe some paint. Shiny creates some interesting effects, so let me just do something shiny like this. No, it's kind of like rough more. Okay, so I'm just going to add a gray ramp to the back of it. Okay, and let's just zoom in on our guy over here. I think I can make the ramp a little bit more. Let me go to scale it. This way. All right, so I'm kind of trying to find a good composition for the model. I think this is looking okay. And just wait a few minutes here to let it cook. And now we'll just kind of start bumping up the materials here or the lighting to product lighting and maybe even interior lighting to get more interesting type of look here to it. Let's go back to product. And what I'm going to do here is it looks like it's kind of floating up. So to fix that, I'm just going to take that ramp and move it up just a little bit. So just a tiny bit. And let's see, 0.1. Let's see if that's better. Maybe a bit more, 0.2. That's what I want right there. Okay. And just wait a minute to let it cook. Edit this material right here. Make it a little bit darker. Nope, maybe lighter. And then maybe there we go. That works better too. And so now you can see here it's a little bit blurry, but over time the render will look better. And so here I just want to find kind of a good look for the model. And just wait a few minutes until it finishes its render. And that's looking okay. So now that that's working, and what kind of lighting did I do? Am I doing product? I am. Okay, so ground illumination, self-shadow. So maybe I will add reflections on the ground. So it kind of looks a little bit more reflective. I guess that didn't do anything because I don't have the ground. That's fine. Trying to find a better place for this light to be. And I think this already kind of adds more to it. All right, and then let's add some image effects like bloom. Let's add a vignette. And now it's all about just waiting for Keyshot to kind of finish up the render here. I have a lot of stuff going on, so it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's not bad. And I'm thinking that this is kind of a good one, so I'm just going to go ahead and save that camera. Actually, already saved it since I did a snapshot. Let me find another interesting angle. How about that? It's a little bit dark over here, so I might kind of add another light. And here I'm just going to drop the lighting back to basic just so I can get that light to show me where it's going to be. maybe I'll just click over here. I just want it to light that area up and increase the brightness of the light. It's still a bit dark. Let's go to 10. Here we go. All right, so that's kind of nice too. Let's move it up a bit. And take the lighting back up to product. That should look better basic. Just leave it at that. And the radius of this light, maybe bring it down to 5 or 10. But double the brightness, triple maybe. Okay, so at this point, it's just a matter of letting Keyshot finish the render. And we've gone about all the way to 10 o'clock, so we've done an extra hour. I haven't been paying attention to any of the text here, but it looks like nobody's really typing anything here. Oh, Johnny Boy is saying that the silhouette is nice. Thank you. And here's kind of another good angle. Let that cook for a while. And at this point, I mean, it's just basically waiting for Keyshot to finish. And then once it gets done, I take this out into Photoshop and maybe put some decals and some wear and tear on it and get it to look a little bit better. So every once in a while, when I like that angle, I basically take a screenshot of it and here's another look from behind. I'm just going to take that and rotate it 180 degrees. Excuse me. So the ramp is facing the other way, and this way we can kind of get maybe a shot of the back of the model, like so. So every time I basically like the look that I have, I take a snapshot, and every one of the snapshots adds a camera, and then I can just jump between the different cameras to remember kind of the areas where I kind of liked the way it is. All right, so camera, here's this one, this one, this one. So basically I have all the different cameras. And of course there's a ZBrush camera, the one that it came with, and that's kind of cool. Kind of a close-up. Here's a whole other shot. Let's do a snapshot of that. And again, this is not fully resolved, the render, but that's fine. I can always kind of finish it up in Photoshop and clean it up there. Let's see if this kind of looks good like this. And let's take the lighting back up to product. When you take it up to product, you have to wait a long while to kind of get a compelling render, but that's fine. Okay, so now I've basically got a bunch of different compositions I can work on this from, and I'm kind of happy with where I'm at. I guess what's coming in front of me is the ramp. Let me put that back. To where it was. Backdrop ramp right here, selected, and 180 degrees. Oh, this should be 0. 180 over here. That's what we want, and then just kind of move back to here. And I can try some different types of looks here too, so I can actually hide the ramp, don't want it, and then maybe see what this thing looks like outdoors. So let's go ahead and put it in this environment. Okay, and let's see the environment behind us too. So here, I'll go back and change this from image back down to lighting environment. So now it looks like it's in this environment over here. I don't know if that's working for me. Let's see what it looks like over here. There we go. That's maybe a little bit better. And we're using product lighting, so I'll just kind of move this to the side over here so we can get the silhouette. And then what I'm going to do is take the environment that I have now and maybe bump up the brightness to 1. And also blur that background so we don't see it. Settings, brightness, contrast, size, height. Where is blur? Under HDR editor, I think it's here. So let's just blur that up. And regenerate it. Here we go. That's a whole other look. And again, of course, I can bring in a floor or whatever. But here what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the whole object that I have and move it down in Y, maybe just a little bit, so it just goes through the ground. There we go. Okay, so this is what it would look like outdoors. Maybe if I flatten the ground, that might look better. Yep, much. So here's another composition. I'll take a snapshot of that. And again, if I sit here and let it cook, it's going to come up with something new. I wonder what it would look like with this environment. Kind of green. How about this one? You know, robot in the garden, I guess. How about this? Like so. Let's rotate that environment around. That's pretty cool. Let's see what it looks like in interior setting. And let's see here. Let's take this to 30%, 50. All right, so at this point, I think I have quite a few different variations. I kind of like this concrete background. Let me change the size of this to 50 or 10, 25. And rotate this around. Let me get the model to be this way. And then get some of that nice concrete in the back like this. All right, and let's see what that looks like. Again, let's bump up the lighting to interior. Let's see if that makes it look any better. And it does. So I've got some good variations here, and I think I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. Let's choose some of these marmoset backgrounds. Here's a train station, I think. Let's see if that looks good. Oh yeah. So here I'm just going to blur that background down to there. That's exactly what I want. Let's just regenerate that. And I think this is going to be my hero shot right there. Let me add a few pins to highlight some areas. At just to get kind of an interesting specular on it. And let's see, what environment did I have here? Did I lighting product? Let's see what it looks like interior wise. No, I think product looks best. Maybe basic. Basic is of course faster. All right, so I think we are good with it right here, and I'm gonna regenerate that background HDR so it doesn't look so jagged. And this is kind of going to be our hero shot for the model. And I think this is it. I'm gonna call it a a day, I guess, or a project for this. And again, I'll revisit the same model, maybe pose it. Sorry, I didn't have time to do it this time around, but maybe pose this model for another render. So keep watching my Instagram and my website, and I will have more versions of this exact same model, but it will be in pose maybe, and it might be the different variants. I think I kind of wanted to do a lot more in this, but I'm kind of happy with the results that I have so far. And I've gotten some great shots already from the model. So the ZBrush model is done right here. I'm happy with it, and I'll go ahead and save it. And then this one right here is kind of going to be the hero render of it. And then when these are done, I'll be posting images of it as well. Okay, so I know, right? So one of the folks watching is saying that it's standing still, but it could be walking on these toes. I figured that would be the case sometimes, like if it needs to do minor shifts, but it probably would be using the entire power of the leg. And the other thing is it could be walking on its hands too. So, you know, this part and this part work exactly the same. And then it could also be running on all fours, and it could also be grabbing stuff and swinging from stuff. So pretty kind of versatile robot here that I've built, and there is so much more I can do with it, maybe pose it. So I don't know if when I pick this back up, when I pick up the next time I do some streaming, I don't know if I will continue maybe a little bit more with this robot or if I will start something new, but I will definitely continue this robot, whether it's when I'm streaming or not. And I will definitely continue this robot on to do more stuff with it because I put in a lot of time designing it. And what's nice about that is that if you do put in a lot of time designing something, then and it's in ZBrush, that can have a very long life after it's done, and you can continue to add variations to it and make different um, iterations. So here, this is kind of an interesting look um, for it. So yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, the variations, the kind of the iterations are endless. You can continue to work on this for as long as you want. So here, I'm basically just going to blur the background a little bit here, like so. Regenerate it. And maybe have him kind of in this environment, like so as well. So he's kind of blending in, but he's also standing out. Find a good contrast environment for him. So yeah, I mean, I could spend so much more time just I'm kind of wanting to end this, but I also am really enjoying myself kind of getting all these different looks and variations. So I think I might go for a little bit longer. Here we go. Here he is at night, in a night setting. I kind of like this angle, so I'm going to actually rotate my robot so he's facing me, but rotate the environment so he's behind it. Like this. There we go. Get that 1 point perspective to work for us, like so. And there we go. There's a cool look. Right, let's wait a few minutes and let that cook. And maybe this would be kind of the parting shot that we do. Again, I'm creating screenshots for all these. And then basically when I'm done, I'll basically look at all the screenshots, figure out which one I like the most, and then use that as kind of the final composition. And then once this is done, I always can load it into Photoshop, clean it up, put some decals and stuff on it to make it more pronounced. And again, look out for different versions of this in my work coming up. I mean, as I showed you earlier, when I do my projects, like I do this mech, for example, I have so many different images of it, and these are just a few of them over here. And here's this mech, and I've got different compositions of it. So what's nice about working in ZBrush is once you have your model established, then you can continue to put it in different environments, different angles, different ways of looking at it, and you can get some pretty compelling results from it. So, all right, so with that, I'm going to call this a night. Thank you everyone for watching, and so this would be the first series that I do of episodes, and it's 9 of them. And then I will come back in July and start a new project, maybe a car. I might be working more on this specific model or other models, so tune in. Keep in touch. Send me a email if you want to get the insert mesh brushes that I created with this. And also keep in touch because I also have workshops and all sorts of other things that I do. So if you want to see more of this, you are more than welcome to keep in touch with me. And I bid you all a good night and see you in July.